Hey everybody, Chris Petri. Thanks for coming by. We're doing some beautiful watercolor paintings. We're going to actually create a beautiful seascape scene today. We're going to do a beach scene with ocean waves coming in, crashing into the beach. We have some beautiful weeds and grasses and things on the sand dunes over here on the left-hand side. We have some beautiful white clouds here with some seagulls in the sky. We have a really great, dark, nice colorful horizon line for our ocean here in the distant ocean, for a really beautiful, nice space division in our painting. Lots of colors in our waves here. We used all kinds of interesting colors: greens, purples, blues, a little bit of siennas and yellow ochres and olive greens. Lots of beautiful colors, mixtures in here. So let's get started in just a second. We'll cover everything from A to Z, all of the layout, the pencil sketch, the space divisions, how we're going to lay out this painting. We're working from a photograph on our phone, so you'll see the phone photograph that we're going to use that we have right on our phone. We'll have it right up here on the right-hand side so you can watch along as we work from that photograph that we have from the internet, and we'll have a great time doing it. So we'll get started in just 2 seconds. All right, hey, we just saw the finished painting, and we're going to get started here. We'll kind of just describe the process we're going to use to create this gorgeous seascape scene here, this beach scene. We have some the beautiful sandy beach here. We have waves crashing in. We have the distant ocean and horizon line of the distant ocean. We have some beautiful clouds and sky washes up here. And we have some, in the very, very foreground, we have a little bit of a sand dune with some grasses and weeds and things like this along the ocean coastal areas here. So this is just a beautiful painting to create. It's a lot of fun. It's not really too technically challenging. These are fun paintings that any watercolor artist, whether you're just starting out or you've been painting for a couple months or so, or maybe a year, you can tackle this type of painting and really have a fun time with it, enjoy it. And actually, I'm sure you'll be able to create a painting you might be able to just frame, put on the wall, give it as a gift, whatever it is you like to do with your artwork. But I'm sure you're going to actually have some really good success with this. So let's get started, and we'll kind of go through what we're going to do to create this painting, the steps we're going to take. So the first thing we're going to do, of course, we saw the finished painting just a second ago. The first thing we'll do is we'll just kind of, where are we going to put that horizon line where the ocean, the distant ocean is? And from this photograph here, and I would say we're going to make it about a little bit above halfway on the paper. So we could take our paper, and even if we wanted to, I'm using a, let's see what our paper is here today. We're using Fabriano paper, and again, I have all my art supplies in the description box below. So if you ever need to know what I'm using as far as paper, paints, brushes, pencils, pens, anything like that, you just check the description box below. Sometimes you have to click the word more for more information below in the video here, but you'll find everything right below. So this is a 10 by 14 sheet of paper, and again, it's Fabriano paper, studio watercolor. It's called Fabriano Studio Watercolor. Excellent paper for the watercolor artist, and it's not the highest end of Fabriano paper, so it's affordable. And all right, so let's take a look now. So we said we have 10 inches here. It's 5 inches would be halfway from 0 to 10. 5 is halfway. We were saying it's a little bit above halfway. Maybe let's call it 3.5 inches from the top down. So if we measure 3.5 inches down from the top of our paper, that's going to give us about a 2/3 or 3/4 of the way up from the bottom. And then all we have to do is just go across with a level line here. You can measure this from both sides. You can say, okay, what do we have here? We have 3.5 inches. You can come over here, do the same thing. You measure 3.5 inches here. And then you just line up your ruler on both of those hash marks, 3.5 inches here, 3.5 inches here, and that gives you the perfect level line all the way across your paper. And that's really all you have to do as far as the design of the painting. Everything else is going to kind of just fall into place. It's going to be more or less pretty straightforward. We're just going to create a little bit of light sketching to get our waves, our crashing waves coming in, and then some of our sand dunes and weeds and grasses and things over here on the left-hand side. So I'll just do a darker line again to make sure we can see this in our video here. So I'm going to go across with that darker line like that. Okay, so that's again about 2/3 of the way up. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So it's 2/3 of the way up from the bottom. That'll be our distant ocean horizon line. And then if we look at our photograph, we can kind of see that maybe a little bit down from the top of the horizon line of the ocean, we're starting to see some of those crashing waves. So I'll put some of those lines like this just to give me a little bit of an indication of where I'm going to need to make some of them beautiful crashing waves coming in over here a little bit too, like that. Okay, just a little bit of indications, light pencil lines. Then we kind of know that from here we're going to have a little bit of a sand dune over here. I'll make a very light type of a sand dune, just a little bit of an angle across the painting, maybe from here a little bit below the waves coming in, a little bit, maybe a third of the way up. So if we were to say 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, so 1/3 up, 1/3 of the way up, that'll be the sand dune, where you kind of have the sand dune coming over here this way, and it comes across here. And then we're going to just kind of take a couple light pencil lines just to make sure that we know that we're going to have some of these weeds going high up in the picture, like this, just like the photograph we're working from here. Okay. And then there might be some wind, so we're going to have some wind like this here with some of the other weeds, like that. There we go, just some indications. We'll work these weeds and these grasses in with our finer brushes as we finish up the painting. That'll be the last thing we're going to do, is the weeds and the grasses. The first thing we're going to do is the sky wash, the ocean, and the sand. So, okay, we have a good amount of preliminary work done. We've laid out our basic design of our painting. That's really, does this make sense? As you're starting out your painting, you're just really, it's nothing too, stressful or anything like that. You're just, when you first start your painting, you're just going to want to get some of these like waypoints or these hash marks just to kind of get an idea of where you're going to want to set things up on your paper. So we said we wanted to definitely get that horizon line of the ocean, which is that distant ocean line that goes all the way across the painting, at about 1/3 of the way down from the top, or 2/3 of the way up from the bottom. And we made that dark pencil line here so we can all see that. We're kind of sticking with the same game plan that we have in this photograph that we're seeing here. Then from that point, really, we just wanted to kind of notate with a little bit of light pencil lines where these crashing waves are coming in along the beach here. And then once we have that, and you could tell it's not a really wide amount of area where these waves are coming in, the surf coming in. It's kind of in a more of a, kind of a tighter band of information that we have here with these waves coming in, and the waves kind of spilling over in the mist and the crashing of the waves here. That's really just about a couple inches maybe. So if we measured it, we might say that it's maybe 1.5 inches, about 2 inches. So 2 inches below that horizon line is where the very, very end of the waves coming in stops. So you can imagine you have 2 inches of waves coming in and crashing in, and then from there the beach starts, and then that goes the rest of the way. So that's kind of a simple kind of a thing too. You can have that little bit of a note for yourself. 2 inches is about the width of the top of the ocean horizon line, all the way in the far distance of the photograph, and then 2 inches down from there is where about the waves coming in ends, and then you have the rest is beach here. Okay, so that'll give you a good basic design for this painting, and that's all you really have to worry about. And then from there, we already did a little bit of sketching here, and we said that the sand dune over here and these weeds and grasses and things, that's about 1/3 of the way up it starts. So that sand dune starts about 1/3 of the way up here, and then it just kind of trails down on an angle like so, like that. So I just did the same thing. I went up 1/3, and I just made that line across like that to make that little bit of a sand dune. It's not going to be a really major feature in the painting. It's just going to be a little bit of something that we'll see in the painting that kind of gives us the indication that there is a little bit of a hill, a little bit of a sand dune over here on the left-hand side where these grasses are and these weeds and things like that. Okay, and that's really it. And then you could, if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of cloud shapes up here. You could just make a couple cloud shapes and lift up your phone and move it over here and just kind of look at it and say, okay, well, there's some really interesting cloud shapes up here. And you can go with a simpler sky. I might do that. I might just go with a simpler sky. I'm not going to get very detailed with my sky like this photograph is, but you could sort of get more interested in making more of a complex sky. I think I'm not really going to do that, but I will just note on my paper in the sky here some of the cloud shapes like this, and then I think that's about it. I think we have everything pretty good. This painting we are going to do alla prima, which means we're going to paint it all at one time. We're not going to really do a glazing where we're going to do a whole wash across the whole paper. We're going to just basically start in one place, maybe the ocean, and then work from the ocean and the crashing waves, and then we'll do some sand. Maybe we'll do the sky next. We'll kind of work it out as we go. But my main goal now is let's get the painting started. We have our photograph up here. I'm going to start with the distant horizon line here of the ocean, and then we'll start there and work our way through the painting, and we'll kind of just go with the flow and see how it goes. It's really, that's what's fun about doing the alla prima method, is you kind of start in one place and just start working through your painting, and you kind of just enjoy the process. And you know, you're kind of probably looking to do some of the darker darks first, which is what I want to capture, some of the darker darks in the painting, and then from there we can do the lighter lights as we go. All right, so I'm going to take a quick break. Again, if it's your first time here, thanks so much for coming by. You're at the right place at the right time. Everything here we're doing is watercolor for the most part. We do have a couple of oil painting videos once in a while, but our main focus here is watercolor painting for the watercolor artist, whether you're just starting out, whether you're a beginner, you're an intermediate artist, you've been painting maybe a couple years or so, or maybe you're just a grizzled pro, you've been 10, 20 years working at watercolors. It's all good. We're all working together, working on our skills. I'm putting out as much information as I can that I have as far as my knowledge of watercolor painting. Hopefully everyone can pick up a little something here and there once in a while. Maybe if you're newer, you're going to pick up a lot of things because you really maybe don't have a lot of knowledge with watercolors. So that's when it's really important when you're first starting out in watercolor. You want to pick up as much knowledge as possible. Knowledge is power, and that's what's the key here, is you're going to gain a lot of knowledge by following along in the videos. And I always mention, if you can subscribe below, you'll be really at an advantage. You'll always see the new videos coming in that we're creating here on my channel. So you can just click on the subscribe button below on the right hand side. You'll be all set up. Next videos that are coming in the next coming weeks and months, you're going to get a little bit of an alert from YouTube just saying that we've created a new video, so you can watch the video, work along with this if you want, or if you just want to watch along and get the information, that's fine too. Or maybe you just like to watch the videos. And in any case, you're the artist. You're going to figure out what your game plan is as far as watching and when you're going to work with the videos, or just watch and gain information, and how much time you have to allocate towards your painting and drawing in watercolor. But in any case, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll start our painting. Okay, let's get started. We're going to do the distant horizon line of the ocean right now. I'm going to make that a little bit of a darker wash. So I'm going to go right in with some French ultramarine blue. And again, all my art supplies are down below in the comments section below. The colors I use, the brushes, the papers, everything is there. So you can peruse through that at your own pace. So I'm going to use French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of cobalt blue. And then I just want to get a good dark, as far as tonal values, this distant horizon line of the ocean, I'm going to make it a little bit darker. And I might change up a little bit of the color as I go. Maybe there's a little bit of green mixed in there. Sap green or viridian green. So you can see I'm just doing that very, very fine line there for the ocean, the distant horizon line of the ocean, like that. Yeah, maybe I'll go with some olive green. And sort of mingle and mix that together and just kind of go across here. See how that looks. And again, a little bit of olive green mixed along the blue, that darker blue mixture there. And then I can kind of just smooth it out. Go across like this. Like that. And again, we're using Fabriano paper, which is a rough paper. It's extra white, so it's Fabriano Studio Watercolor. And when you just, the paper I have here that I'm using is in the description box below, so you'll be able to look that up. You might have to click on the word more to see more information, and then you'll see the description box below in the video, and you'll see that it's in there, the paper that I'm using. And then what I'll do is I'll just take some viridian green too, and I'll start to let the paper do some work for me and help me to add some sparkle to the ocean. A little bit of that white paper sparkling like it's the light sparkling on the ocean, like that. Like that. And then also too, we're going to do some darker paint underneath the waves here that we're going to see some. We're going to see a little bit of that darker wave action up here. And then underneath those waves, we're going to make a little bit of a darker green. So let's use some more sap green, a little bit of the blue and sap green, and a little bit of the burnt sienna too. And we're just going to do a little bit of the darker darks here. You can kind of see I'm just going to scrub in just a little bit of that dark here. Maybe we'll add a little more burnt sienna to that, and a little more dark blue, like the French ultramarine blue, a little bit of sap green too. So we're going to kind of get a little bit of a darker wash under there, under the white paper. And that's where we want to leave that white paper, that space of the white paper above this darker wash we're doing here. Maybe over here, we'll blend this out a little bit. Maybe we don't want it that dark. So let's blend this out a little bit like this, like that. Sometimes we want to mellow out an area over here like this. Okay, so when you add in these little darker areas like this, that gives us the feeling of the ocean waves crashing in. And then I can rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of water, and then get a little cerulean blue maybe over here. We'll put a little cerulean blue over here. I'll try to do a little bit of cerulean blue, just mix some in there. into the mix of the water, so it's not gives us a really nice feeling of mixtures of colors, right? We've used quite a bit of nice mixtures of colors here. We didn't just stick with like one or two blues or something like that. You can kind of see we used the French ultramarine blue and cobalt blue in the very, very top of our ocean horizon line with a little bit of the burnt sienna to give it that little bit of a darker tonal value. Then as we started working down with our ocean, we added in some olive green and some more blue, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of cobalt blue. And now we're adding in a little bit of cerulean blue to it. And that's fine. And then we'll take some of that cerulean blue and we'll do some splashing for the waves, the crashing waves coming in. So all you have to do is just go along the paper where the waves are coming in and just do some splashing. Just get some speckles of paint on there for like speckles of waves crashing in and foam and mist coming up like that. And then that's pretty much gives us the good feeling of that happening there. And then we can do a little more lines here of waves coming in like that, just a few. And then we can even start going in and getting some raw sienna and a little bit of yellow ochre. And we're going to start mixing in some of that golden sand color right along here. And I just lightly, you can see I'm scrubbing it on. I don't want to just completely put a wash on the paper. I want to scrub it so that there's some white paper left. Like that. So I want to leave some white paper showing. So I'm just kind of lightly going across the top of the paper with my yellow ochre and raw sienna to give me that sandy kind of feel along the sand here in the foreground. And we can even add in a little bit of a tiny bit of alizarin crimson to the sand, just to give it that little bit of a more warm feel to it, like that. Okay, and that is really looking good. We have plenty of texture. We can even go in and get some more texture. We'll do some speckles here, just like that, sand. So if we just speckle on some paint here in the foreground, a little bit over here, if some of the spots that you make and you create don't look great, you can always lift up with a tissue and just blot up a few spots. But I think for the most part that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we have a really good solid start here to the painting. We've got the ocean in, the distant horizon line, the ocean waves crashing in. We have the sand. You know, you can add some more blue here if you want to the water in the foreground here a little bit. Like that. You can blot up a little bit like that with a tissue to kind of create some mist. A little more sand if you want. Okay, and that should be good. All right, so let's let this start to dry a little bit, our first bit of washes here, and then we'll continue on. We're going to create maybe some clouds next, and we'll move this down to the bottom of the painting, our photograph, and then we'll start painting in our sky. And we're not going to go with something too complicated with the sky. I think we'll keep the sky a little more simple, just because we want to sort of get this painting moving along, enjoy the process. You can always take a little bit of more time if you want to make more of maybe some interesting cloud shapes and things like that. But I don't think I'm going to get too fancy with the sky. I tend to think that skies look better a little bit less complicated, and that seems to always work for me. But you're the artist. You'll kind of experiment with your clouds and your skies and your paintings and see how things work out. But in any case, let's take a quick break, and when we come back again, we'll start working on the sky washes up here, and we'll move once this dries down here a little more, we'll move our phone down here to the bottom so you can still see the sky, and we'll put the phone down here, and then we'll work on the washes up on top here. Okay, all right, we'll be right back. All right, let's get started. Again, let's get working on the sky. So let's move our iPhone down here. And then we're going to take our same brush. I think we'll use this. Maybe we'll actually upsize our brush a little bit. So I have some fresh clean water in my water container. And then I'll use a little bit of a larger brush. This is a number 12 Da Vinci travel brush. So we'll kind of do this. What we'll do is we'll take the fresh clean water and kind of start our sky out with a little bit of fresh clean water on the paper. So we'll put a little bit of fresh clean water up there on the paper, not flooding it too much, just put a little bit of light water on there just to kind of get things started, a little bit of moisture on the paper. And then what I like to do is also really important, if you can, take a little bit of a damp brush, not too much water, just a damp brush. You can even take a little bit of water off your brush on a tissue, and you just want to make a light line of a damp brush along just above the ocean horizon line. So you don't want to touch the paint. You want to leave about a little small bit of white paper in between your damp brush stroke here and your ocean horizon line. And what that does is when we're doing the sky and the water starts flowing down the paper, it won't flow into the ocean. So it'll stay separated from your ocean wash. And then you can just kind of blend them together at your will. Does that make sense? You'd rather have the control of letting the sky washes flow down and stop before they start going into the ocean that you just created. And then you can gently kind of blend them together at your will when you want to. Maybe you might want to wait a few minutes after you're done with your sky wash and then gently blend in. Let's say, does that make sense? It's more of a better plan to kind of keep that water from flowing down into your ocean area. So all you have to do is just go over the top of your ocean horizon line and leave a little space between that brush stroke I'm doing and that dark paint that we put in there, which was the French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, a little bit of burnt sienna. And I think that is going to be a big help for us. Let's see how it works out. Okay, so now I'll mix some sky wash, cerulean blue. I'm leaving some of those leftovers in the palette there. Cobalt blue. Like that. Lots of water. And let's just get the paint flowing on the paper. And that's the advantage when you put that water onto your paper first. Then you can kind of see how that really looks good. It starts to flow around and look like watercolors. And then if you have anything going too aggressively, you can lift it up with a little bit of tissue. If you want to keep some clouds in here, we'll do some clouds on the top here like that. So if you want to leave some clouds in there, you can do that. You can leave some clouds in there, and then you can come across here. You can kind of see how it's a little bit darker there. You can add some purple maybe. I'll add a little purple up there, a little purple here, maybe a little bit of purple in the water just to tie everything together. And I can see here these clouds are kind of going to the right, so I'll go in here. Maybe a little bit of raw sienna there too, a little bit of color to the clouds like this. And then as you can see, we left that space between the ocean and the sky. You could take some tissue, blot up a little bit of paint if you want to kind of make some cloud, misty cloud shapes like that. Maybe I'll add a touch of cadmium orange here. Just a little bit of cadmium orange. And I add a little bit of that to the horizon line here. Not a lot though. Just a little bit along here. But I have to do this quick now. I have to really get this in now. I can't wait another minute or two and then start to put this in because watercolor is sometimes a medium where you have to kind of work quickly. You'll notice that. You'll work as you go. It's always a learning curve that you get when you're working with watercolors. So as you work with watercolors and you're putting more time into it, you'll start to kind of get the feel for it. It's a feel thing, really. And no one can really give you the answers to a lot of questions you might have when you're trying to work with watercolor and you're trying to figure out how it works all the time. It's really just a matter of when you're working with it, you just sort of get the hang of it. You say, oh yeah, I've got to get my washes in a little quickly before they start to set up and dry, so that because if I add too much color and other washes on top of washes that are starting to dry that I've already put on the paper, that can add some really, like, it causes problems. It makes the washes look a little bit messy, and they sort of start to have unpleasant looking marks on the paper. So that's where you have to experiment, and you'll see how it works out as you go. So it's just a little bit of time. Give yourself a lot of patience when you're working with watercolors. It's not easy. Watercolors take time to learn. All right, so we have that there. You can even take a little bit of that orange and maybe put a little bit up there, just to kind of give a little more balance to the painting. But again, you have to be careful when you're adding in some extra colors here and there that it's not too far when the paint is starting to dry. So that's why working kind of quickly with watercolor really helps out. Okay, so now we have the sky washes in now. We have the ocean. Again, really critical thing, we noticed that if we put that little bit of a damp edge along the top of the ocean, now we're not having a lot of that water from the sky flowing down and going into the ocean area. So now we can just let that sort of sit there for a while, maybe for 10-15 minutes, and then maybe after 10-15 minutes we can gently blend those two edges together, the sky with the ocean, the distant ocean horizon line. Does that make sense? You know, waiting on that, if you have more time to work with that and give yourself that little bit of a damp line across there, that just helps things from flowing into each other when you're working with watercolors. And you can use that method and that technique of putting a damp edge along different areas of where you're working on your watercolor paper in all types of situations, not just skies and oceans. You know, you can get creative with it and try it out in different areas of your painting. Sometimes if you want to, you know, try it out in different styles. Maybe you're doing a city scene where you're painting buildings in a sky and you don't want the sky to flow, washes to flow into the buildings you're painting. You might do that same idea of making a little bit of a damp edge. Or if you're doing still life paintings and you want to go around your bouquet of flowers with a damp edge so that you can put your background colors in, and so they don't flow into your flowers and things. So you can kind of work with that technique and that method with a lot of different things that you're doing in watercolor, not just this situation of sky and the ocean. It can work in a lot of different applications. Okay, all right, so we are really almost completed now. All we have to do is let this dry a little bit, let this set up. So we'll take a quick break. You can use a blow dryer at this point if you want to keep working through the painting and not really stop for a break or anything like that. You can do that. But we'll let this all dry, and then we'll start doing some weeds and grasses and things over here on the left-hand side, just like we see in the photograph here, along this dune here, this sand dune. And maybe we'll do a little bit of detail work in the sand, maybe a little bit of these bits of shadows and things like that in the sand that we're seeing here. But I think we're pretty far along here. Maybe we're 90% complete now. We just have to do a few more things with the grasses on the sand dune here and the weeds, and we'll be all set. So let's come back in just a minute or two, let this dry, or if you're going to let it dry, you might have to wait a couple hours or so. Or you can use a blow dryer, and it's only like about 5 minutes maybe, and you can get it dry enough where you can start working again on everything. Okay, all right, let's come back in a few minutes. All right, so we used the blow dryer. We got the paper nice and dry, especially over here on the left-hand side. Next thing we're going to do is let's mix up some paint for our grasses and weeds here on the left-hand side of this sand dune. So I'm going to go in and grab some burnt umber, and I'll just mix it all the way across here because we're going to use a larger brush here in a minute. We'll show you. We're going to use a Hockey brush. We'll use some sap green, some cerulean blue. So we're going to just kind of mix some good warm and cool colors. Cerulean blue, sap green, a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of French ultramarine blue. Kind of just a nice mixture of warm and cool colors like that. I use my larger round brush to mix up the paint, and then I set that aside. Then I get my Hockey brush, which is basically it's about 1 inch to 1.5 inches wide, and then I take it, dampen the brush, and then splay out the hairs like this. This is a great brush. I think I have it in the description below. And we just load it up with some paint like this, and we get some and what's great about this is you get some beautiful, like literally hundreds and hundreds of weeds and things like that, and grasses in just a few little, like that. So this is a really fun brush. You can create literally tons of details like this very quickly. And then you can go in and even get some burnt sienna and some burnt umber and some French ultramarine blue, just to give it a little more of a darker. There might be some shadowy kind of like this. So you do a couple of the darker darks like that, just to give some darker bits of weeds and things like that and grasses. And that should be fine. And then once we do that, then we can go and we can get a needlepoint brush like this. A needlepoint brush works fantastic. We get some, I have that again in the description box below. I believe I have that there too. sap green, a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of French ultramarine blue. And then we take our, and we just go up like this. And we have some really tall bits of grasses and weeds and things like this. Like that. Sap green, burnt sienna. You can make them a little thicker. You can make some of these weeds and grasses and things a little thicker. You know. You can go in and grab some extra paint and do some splashing on there, just to add a little bit of interest into the bits of specks of paint. And you can even go in and grab some more of a larger brush like this, a large round brush like we were using before, the number 12. A little bit of that. And you can add some splashes like that. And if they kind of get a little bit, splash around, I like to maybe make some splashes along the bottom and make some darker washes along the bottom of the painting like that. And then you can always take a tissue and blot up any spots that maybe you're not totally happy with. You can just quick lift them up. Like that. And that always looks good if you have a little bit of an area of, grasses and weeds and things, and it's a little darker. It kind of feels like it's a weight that kind of weights the painting down, so it kind of feels like it's a nice anchor for the painting to kind of like feel like it's sitting on a table or something like that, like it has some weight to it. So that's kind of nice to have that little bit of the dark over here. And again, I think everything else looks good. I don't think we need to really do anything else, so we definitely captured all the weeds and the grasses along the dune over here. And I think this is good. It's a good completed painting. We could add maybe a couple seagulls. Let's do that. Let's add a couple of seagulls here. So I'll add some darker darks like that. Some blue. Kind of a grayish blue and burnt sienna. I dry off a little bit of the paint with the tissue. And then we can make a couple of seagulls here. Like that. Just a few. Like I wouldn't do too many. And maybe a larger one up here. And if one doesn't come out good, you can always blot it out. Don't be afraid to blot out something with a tissue if you feel like it doesn't look perfect, if you want it to look better. So there we have a couple, and then maybe up here we'll just do one like this. Like that. That can look really good, adding a little bit of a couple seagulls in the picture here. All right, thanks so much for coming by. Please subscribe on the right-hand side below. If you haven't subscribed, and if it's your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. If you're at the right place at the right time, if you're starting out in watercolor and you want to create beautiful watercolor paintings, if you stick here on my channel, you'll just learn all the fundamentals as we go. I try to cover all the fundamentals every single video I create so that there's never any question about the basics of watercolor as we're creating our paintings. So in this painting, you did notice that we covered everything from the beginning, the sketch, how to lay out our painting, working from a photograph, how we're going to set up everything, where's the horizon line going to be for our ocean, the sky wash, how much are we going to make of beach, how much are we going to allocate as far as our ocean waves coming in, our crashing ocean waves coming in. So we covered the whole bit of details on designing our painting first with our pencil sketch, and then we've covered all the colors we've used in our washes and how we went about creating our washes in our painting. Some other techniques, of course. So, again, thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon on another video. Okay? Bye-bye.